On today's show, the San Diego Padres continue to hate Padres fans, losing another game against the Colorado Rockies after leaving plenty of runners in scoring position. Dylan Cease not having his best start in a little bit. And of course, Manny Machado's very big struggles continue. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, May 15th. As always, I'm your host, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You might be familiar with my baseball-related work over at Just Baseball, where I write about not just about Padres, but also general baseball stuff, and I also have a show about general baseball silliness and madness with the latest episode about Scott Boras quotes called Baseball versus the World. You can check that out on Twitter and wherever you get your podcasts from. Actually, not wherever. It's only on Spotify right now. You can follow me, though, on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno. You guys know the drill. We're talking Padres game recaps. And look, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm really happy that I didn't do the recap after the game last night. For the record, tomorrow's episode will be available at 12 because the game is a little bit earlier today, at 4 o'clock Eastern time for me. I'm happy I didn't because there's one of the shows that I really like a lot. Although I have some issues with it. Not everything ages perfectly, but one of my favorite shows is called The West Wing. Those who have watched The Social Network, you know, Aaron Sorkin, this is kind of what he's known for writing. And there's one episode, it's the pilot actually, where the president gets into this whole really brilliantly written monologue, basically about saying like, I don't make decisions. I don't want to make decisions while I'm angry. That's basically what you shouldn't do. And that's why I didn't record last night, because I was up. I was out and about. I was watching the Nuggets and the Timberwolves game. But I just was like, you know what? I'm a little tired, and also I'm just really upset. And I imagine that all of you feel the same way. Not necessarily about the West Wing, but specifically about being frustrated as all hell after that game. It was just a nightmare. It really was. And we got to talk about every single thing about it, and then talk about like what it is with the Padres' ability to whip back like it's a slingshot your hype and excitement for this team. And that's what they have shown they continue to do so much. But first, let me just tell you guys, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. They have over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Yeah, I know. Weird. I didn't do the ad intro early this time. That was weird. I know, but stick with me, folks. Last night's game, the Padres lose 6-3, and I think that there's something to be said vibe-wise. And again, I've already talked about how I just think that it's too early to litigate the record of teams, especially when it's like this, because bottom line is that there's a lot of teams underperforming. In baseball, this is what happens all the time, especially early on in the season, where just a series or two seems to throw everything out of whack. And it's worth noting that while the Padres are 22-23, they are currently in hold of a wildcard spot. They're 2 games up, actually, on the next team, which would be the Nationals, for the third wildcard spot. So I just want to tell everyone that before we get into an episode that will be very rant-heavy. Best believe that. Don't worry. I'm giving it to y'all, because this team refuses to give back to Padres fans. I mentioned this last year a lot, and it was basically a new advanced stat that I came up with. I know everyone's talking about Baseball Savant and that they have the new swing speed data. For me, here's an advanced stat for you. The Padres lead the league since the start of 2023 in most disappointing performances and sold-out crowds. This is a real stat. Oh, yeah, you can look it up for sure. I'm not making this up. Yeah, not at all. It's just unbelievable that they keep doing this. And against the Rockies. 6-3 final score. Yesterday, I had actually tweeted from the Padres account for once. I mostly tweeted about the Padres from my main account at Javipeno, which you guys could check out. But I had mentioned that the Padres record, and I think I said this on Monday's episode too, so forgive me for repeating, but it needs to be emphasized again. 2021, they were 8-11 against the Rockies. 2022, they were 9-10 against the Rockies. 2023, the year where they were bad against everyone, they finally managed to be good against the Rockies, so congratulations to them, 9-4 against them. And then this year so far, they're 2-4 against them. I do not think that it's a coincidence that you've had multiple years of disappointment and you've had multiple years where you are really bad against one of the worst teams in baseball. It's between them and the A's for the worst teams over these last few years in terms of just overall like the worst teams in the sport. That's not being exaggerating like at all. The Rockies are really bad. In fact, they don't even have that good of an offense. Even if they play at Coors Field, their offense isn't very good. They score 6 runs in this game. Dylan Cease, he goes 5 2/3, gives up 3 earned runs on 5 hits. Look, yeah, is it a little bit annoying that he had a little bit of a regression start, considering that he was so invincible last week, but also considering that he was really good the last time he played the Rockies at Coors, 7 innings, 1 earned run, only 1 hit, the no walk, 8 strikeout game. He still had a good start. This is obviously not on Cease. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying if some people are wondering, oh, of course Cease falls off against the Rockies. He actually wasn't that bad. And in fact, I don't think that he gave up too much hard contact, frankly, that I thought was like worth bringing up, right? Like there was a home run by Ryan McMahon in this game, but other than that, none of the hard hit balls came against Dylan Cease. The hardest hit one was the Ryan McMahon home run that was, 470 expected batting average, so not the worst thing in the world, but, home run in the 29 at 30 ballpark. So he did have the one home run to Ryan McMahon, who, by the way, has been like a pretty good player for the Rockies, if I'm not mistaken. He's finally been kind of breaking out. It doesn't surprise me, but solo shot from him. But other than that, didn't give up too much hard contact. Just a lot of singles, did walk that one batter. Just not a great start from him, but not terrible either. And not to mention there was a catcher's interference at one point from our boy Campizano that allowed a runner to get on base. So it's just not his fault, right? Like I'm not freaking out over that. But what I am freaking out over is the fact that the Padres just refused to score all game. Top of the 4th inning, you get that Ryan McMahon home run. And then top of the 6th inning, Nightmare Alley, right? So let's get into that. Nightmare Alley in the top of the 6th inning. Not only do you have, like I said, the aforementioned Campizano catcher's interference. We love Luis Campizano on this show. We had the Hive last year. The Hive is still strong. It remains strong even after last night and even after this catcher's interference. But it's just frustrating that the Padres do stuff fundamentally different whenever they play this team. It's insane. And in fact, I want to give you guys a little bit of an illustration of that, is that after the home run, the 6th inning, and after the catcher's interference, Cease gets knocked out of the game, like I mentioned, only 5 2/3. And then they bring in our guy, Stephen Kolek. I say our guy facetiously, by the way. He's been very whatever. I think he's the example of like a guy that might get sent down at some point if they find another reliever. I've already talked about the Padres bullpen that I think it's been pretty good. They were great yesterday. They were elite yesterday, but the Padres didn't come through with 8 walks in 3 innings by the Rockies, so that's not on the bullpen. That the Padres bullpen, I just think there's so much more depth there and there's so many more options there that if they have to, you've still got like your Estrada to hope for. You've still got your Morejon to hope for. You've still got, your Suarez and Santos and Matsui and all these guys, Wandy Peralta, that, as I knock over my Tatis bobblehead, that I do think that if something goes bad, you can find a couple people on the market that won't cost too much. It doesn't have to be Mason Miller of the A's, although I guarantee you AJ Preller really, really wants that because AJ Preller has never just had a regular offseason in his life and is always aiming for the stars for every move. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, just like, I think that it can be improved. But Stephen Kolek has a really bad game here. 1 1/3, 3 earned runs on 5 hits, no walks, but a strikeout. Just a really nightmarish moment. But I will say that the BABIP gods weren't fully on the Padres' side in this situation, right? After there is a double play that is forced by the Rockies, by Jacob Stallings. After that, you get a little bit unlucky with a single that's only hit 77.7. Hold on. Let me get this right. After that, you have 104 hit by Brendan Rodgers. Then you have a 67 exit velocity for Brendan Doyle, a 48.9 from Elvis Montero, I don't know how to say his name fully, and then a 77.5 exit velo on Jordan Beck. All of them end up being singles. I just want to throw that out there to say that the Rockies, don't get me wrong, there is such thing as getting hits, even if you're not hitting the ball hard. Luis Ariz is the king of that. He's currently on the Padres. It's not all about hard hit, but it's just funny that the Rockies aren't a good hitting team, though. You know what I mean? And even against the Padres, they managed to not hit the ball well, but all of a sudden they know right exactly where to put it. And that's a little bit of an illustration. After you get that double play and then a bunch of runs come in from Montero, from Jake, Jordan Beck, all those guys, just really frustrating stuff again. And it's, of course, it can't just be luck that goes in favor of the Rockies. It's also got to be the luck gods and the BABIP gods going against the Padres, which we'll get to in a little bit, guys. And then best believe we will be talking about Manny Machado. But until we do that, folks, I just want to talk to you guys again about our friends over at eBay, and specifically eBay Motors. We love eBay Motors here. We do. Because here's the thing. Your boy, he's not good at cars. He's just not. He's not. He's never been a car guy. He's never been outside of Fast and Furious movies. He's never been good with them. He doesn't understand them. And there's so many things you need to know. There's so many different parts you're going to need. It's a car, for God's sake. Okay? And here's the thing. eBay Motors has you covered on all of those things. The formula for winning championships is the same as it is for winning your car, or at least peak performance from your vehicle, because you need so many different areas to maintain it, from everything: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die vehicle. And here's the thing, they have eBay Guaranteed Fit, which will show you, it shows like a little check mark if it is compatible with your vehicle or your money back, right? Hold on. Hopefully I was right about that part. Yes. Or your money back. Hey, it's an ad. I don't want to get too wrong here, folks, but they guarantee it. And that's really helpful for, like I said, someone like me who doesn't fully understand vehicles. So I love that they have that feature. It's really, really helpful for something like this. And like I said, they have everything. They probably have like a little, what are those? The car sweeteners? They've probably got those around. I haven't checked, but they might. Even if they don't, though, they have everything else you can need for your vehicle. So go check it out, guys, at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Go and check it out. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Your team every day, free and available on all platforms. You can follow me on Twitter, of course, at Javapeno, JAVIIPENO. Moving on, though, ladies and gentlemen, just a really, really frustrating game. Look, let me just get through the rest. Jake Cronenworth, line out with bases loaded, 520 expected batting average, by the way. Just want to throw that out there because, again, it wasn't just luck for the Rockies last night. It was also a little bit unlucky for the Padres. I don't think I can be mad at Jake Cronenworth. There were two opportunities for him to drive in runs last night. He did not. But to me, I'm just like, hey, you know what? Like, this is just unlucky. Sometimes, like, it's hard for me to get super mad about this when it comes to Cronenworth, who has been available and with the team for a long time, and he's been a long time this season as in, and he's been coming up clutch a lot this year. So I don't want to, like, hate the guy too much, right? Like, that's the bottom line. He's been really good, and he was unexpected, right? I think that is the reason why last night is so frustrating, and this entire team is so frustrating, is that the Padres are fundamentally better in so many areas. With the offense, they aren't, me, if I was up the plate in this situation. They are so much better than what they were last year when it comes to runners in scoring position. But what's so frustrating is it is not because of the Padres' big three. Tatis has been okay this year. He's been good. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to... I know Tatis hasn't been like the MVP version of what we want, but he's certainly not been, bad in the clutch, right? He's actually been pretty good with runners in scoring position. It's Xander Bogaerts and Manny Machado. And it's just really frustrating that they've gotten some unbelievably unexpected things to go their way this year. I don't think people saw the Jake Cronenworth thing coming. In my opinion, while Jackson Merill is a top-level prospect, I'm never going to be like, I know this will happen, and you should expect it to be when it comes to rookies. I just never will. I don't care who it is, right? In my opinion, I just don't think you should do that. I thought that he could be good, but he's been more than good. He's been amazing. In fact, last night, you see him getting amped as well in the game, too. He does have 2 strikeouts, by the way. Stole a base. He did get on base once and stole a base, which I appreciated. But, Merrill, it's okay, though. No one's expecting giant stuff from him. Luis Campusano, he goes 2 for 4 last night with an RBI single. And, he does leave a runner on base later, but he at least did his job once. But then, of course, this team's never firing on all cylinders, right? That's the issue here. And they do get a little bit unlucky. In fact, even at the end of the game, bottom of the 9th inning, my friend was actually at the game last night, and he said people are just going nuts. And that's why I bring up the stat about underperforming with sold-out crowd. The Padres lead the league in that. He said everyone's going nuts. It's amazing that when you watch these games, when you watch this team play, this is a team with all the all the highly paid players that they have, all the superstar players that they have, all these big personalities. How often you will see a sold-out crowd at Petco begging to love you. Begging. I say that because they will literally get 2 runners on base with no outs, and the place sounds like a rock concert. Seriously. And I can tell that from the TV, not to mention my friend who's there too. Just get 2 people on base. They're down by 6, guys. They're down by 6, and you can tell the atmosphere in Petco is going nuts. They want to love you, and they have loved a lot of this team this year. They just came off a series win, their second series win against the Dodgers, and their first series against the Dodgers in Seoul was a split. And you had big hits there. It's amazing the come down that this team has right when you start to believe in them. We're not asking them to be the 108-win team that the Dodgers are probably going to be. We know that's not going to happen. You need a lot to go right, and you need fundamentally a team sound from top to bottom. That's hard to do, right? And that has nothing to do with playoffs, by the way. The Padres could clearly kick the Dodgers' ass in the playoffs. Anyone can. The Rockies could probably find a way to beat the Dodgers in the playoffs, right? But with this team, it's amazing how, like, I can't emphasize enough. I can't emphasize enough that in that bottom of the 7th inning, that it really feels like, it starts off with a Jerickson profile walk, then Xander Bogaerts single. The atmosphere wants to explode. Why won't you let them? Why won't you let them? It's amazing. Jackson Merill hits it to fielder's choice. Xander Bogaerts out. But then we get the Luis Campusano single. Ha-Seong Kim, who, in my opinion, we need to talk about him a little bit. He's basically reverted to what he was 2 years ago, where he seems to have lost a lot of the strides that he made offensively at the plate last year. Not walking the same, certainly not making contact the same, not hitting for power the same. He's carried by the fact that his defense is absolutely, second to none, but it's worth pointing out that Kim has not been great. Granted, he's a 9th hitter. It's hard to get mad at people like Kim and Merill and Campusano when you have guys like Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts, who are among some of the most underperforming, highly paid players in the entire sport. Like Anthony Rendon and Jose Abreu are the only ones that I can think of right now. And technically Chris Bryant, but he's been battered by injuries. And I don't even think he's been playing at all. So that's another one. Luis Arias gets a single. He continues his on-base streak, by the way. A little bit of a silver lining to tonight. 21 game on-base streak for Luis Arias. He goes 2 for 5 last night, including that RBI there. Tatis gets a single. Then he gets a second on a wild pitch, along with Arias. Luis Campusano then scores on a wild pitch, and then at bat to Jake Cronenworth. And then, unfortunately, the line out happens, and it's rough, right? Like, it's rough. It stinks that was how the inning ended. But alas, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. You know what I mean? But a line out, that really stunk. 520 expected batting average on that thing. And if it wasn't, just to add insult to injury, in the bottom of the 9th even, 6-3. 6-3. Like, it's not impossible for this team to come back. Remember, keep the Cubs game in mind, folks. That was a great game from what feels like eons ago, but even still, this team has shown that they can make comebacks and that the team can hit. Bottom of the 9th inning, Ha-Seong Kim has a line out of 720 expected batting average. 720. And then Luis Arias has another line out with an 860 expected batting average. So it is a combination of not just the Padres playing poorly, not just the Rockies playing better, but also literal luck and batted ball gods aiding the Rockies and hurting the Padres. I've brought up a lot of batted ball stuff today. My apologies. I don't like to get too stat heavy on this podcast. I just try to be fun and frankly just rant. That's what I'm doing today. But there you go. Right? Like there you go. Just like how does all that bad? I just mentioned before, they're barely hitting the ball hard at all, and of course they squeak through for singles. This team hits the crap out of the ball with 700 expected batting average for 2 nobody gets on base. Could you imagine bottom 9 there? I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying they do it, and I know some people are probably going to leave a comment or DM me and be like, wow, you saw what they did the night before and you think that they would have made a comeback there? All I'm saying is there was an opportunity. They had 2 balls that were hit really well, and they didn't line up for hits. So maybe you get the momentum. Maybe someone hits the home run to tie the game. It brings us right back into it. The vibe is back. But instead, that doesn't even happen. They can't get anything to go right for them when they play this Rockies team. I do not understand. 8 walks the previous night in 3 innings. You couldn't get the hits to tie the game. Then another 8 left on base tonight. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, guys. This is a team that is good. I still believe in it, but it is so fascinating to me how much it's that Superman and Darkseid meme, just grabbing you by the cape when you're about to be off. Actively trying its best to make sure that they don't go on a streak. It was very 2023-like. Remember last year with the Padres, one of the things that happened is they didn't win 4 games straight until September. Now this year, they did that like 2 weeks ago. I just want to point that out to be a little bit positive that they have been good, much better, tangibly better than last year. But it is so frustrating, man. It's super frustrating, and I don't know why they can't play the Rockies. I don't know why the Rockies all of a sudden... I mean, guys, Charlie Blackmon stole a base on Monday. The guy's like 37 years old. He's had 0 F-WAR basically each of the last 6 seasons. That's what it feels like. And he can't really run anymore, and he steals a base against the Padres. It's like, what's going on? It's making me like hate the Rockies, a team that I think is just funny and kind of just a team of vibes because for some reason they've been garbage for like a decade and they still are up there in attendance. Like they just have fans who are just there for a good time. And apparently that throws up off the Padres, turns them all into gods. CJ Cron, everyone remembers him, average DH basically, 1,000 career OPS against the Padres. 1,000. I don't understand. I don't understand why this team hates us. It's really annoying to cover them. And I don't know. But we got one last thing we got to talk about. We got to talk about it big time. Oh yeah, you know who I mean. The guy that heading into the season, and some of you guys gave me crap. Some as in, not in the grand scheme of things, but people listen to this podcast who follow me on Twitter. Manny Machado to me was much more frustrating last year. And he's certainly been more frustrating this year, at least in my opinion, than any player on the team. Although it is very close with him and Bogart, so that's not saying much. It's neck and neck with those two, right? We got to talk about him because this is getting obscene. But there might be a reason for his struggles. And we'll talk about that in just a second, guys. But before we do that, let me just take a second to talk to you all about daily fantasy sports, folks. That's right. And the best daily fantasy sports app is, of course, PrizePicks. With more than 3 million members, it is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action. All you have to do is pick pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch those winnings roll in. Folks, last night, WNBA started up. We got all the sports in the world. WNBA started up last night. We got the NHL playoffs. I saw that the Rangers are in trouble. Well, maybe you want to bet on them to make a comeback because they've been so good this postseason. And of course, you got the NBA playoffs. You got baseball regular season. You got this Padres game coming up today. Whatever you want to do, they have you covered. And one thing that I do like about them a lot is if you do pick a player, they have like an injury insurance thing. So in baseball, that would be if your player, let's say you pick, I don't know, remember like early on in the year when Jerickson Profar had like a 2 at-bat game and they pulled him for a Zokar as a defensive replacement? If that were to happen and you pick Profar, that won't count as a loss for you because it was 2 or less plate appearances. So that's awesome-tacular indeed. So go check that out, guys. And they have all of these different promotions like every other week, every other day that you could get in on, weekly offers that you won't want to miss under their promos tab. And they've also got a communities tab to play against some of the big people in their community, like a Meek Mill, like a Sugar Sean O'Malley. They've got you covered with everything daily fantasy sports when it comes to PrizePicks. So go check it out, download the app, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Remember, that is just download the app, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. And just like that, we are back here in the waning moments of the Locked On Padres podcast, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Frankly, I have not at all. I just haven't. It's been really rough. It really has. I am absolutely miserable, and I hate talking about this team right now. But we carry on anyway, guys. Let's talk about Manny Machado. Manny Machado has been really bad for a long time now. And I think it's worth discussing that. And by the way, I said he had a shoulder injury. My bad, I meant elbow injury. I said that on yesterday's show. My apologies. This year, Manny Machado has been quite bad. One of the most underperforming players, probably in the division, I'd say. I can't think of anyone other. No, actually, probably number one most underperforming is Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks. But Manny Machado, by the day, the hard hit is still there. We've talked about this before. He could still hit the ball really hard. 94th percentile in hard hit rate. In barrel percentage, he's 74th percentile. In bat speed, if we care about that, I don't know how to read into that as much. He's 85th percentile. And then average exit velocity, which I do like a lot, is 88th percentile. But one of the things that's happened over these past few years is that his strikeout rate has spiked a little bit. He had it from 15.9% in 2021, then 20.7% in 2022, because one of the things that happened with Machado in his, what I think should have been MVP season, is that he was a lot more aggressive at the plate. And part of me thinks that he was more aggressive at the plate because he knew, with Tatis out and having not really any other players that you knew you're going to be able to trust on the offense, it would have to be him. So he's swinging a lot more. He's swinging a lot more first pitch strikes, and it worked. It absolutely worked. His hard hit rate was good that year. All that stuff. It was awesome. And then he went down a little bit in the strikeout rate last year. So it was like, okay, so he's being a little bit more patient. But he didn't come through in the clutch. And like I said, he was the master of hitting home runs when the team didn't need them. And then this year, his strikeout rate has spiked up to 22.4%. Last night, how does Manny Machado follow up? Losing the game after swinging on the first pitch, which I've seen like on Padres discourse world, there's been a little bit of a debate about whether or not he should have swung at the first pitch. I am someone who believes no, and I understand that it was a strike. And my thing, though, is just I don't want Machado swinging on the first pitch there when the guy has literally thrown some wild pitches already and thrown stuff out of the strike zone. You've got Petco behind you. I'd wait a little bit. I really would. Because Machado has also not been good this year. And he's the type of player where he's prone to gobble play balls. And that's not always bad because he puts the ball in the seats. But he's not doing that this year. So that's why I was like, don't swing on the first pitch. That doesn't seem right, especially against a reliever who can't find the strike zone right now. And a team that is clearly razzled by this. I mean, it happened last night with Vodnik on the Rockies. Like, he was throwing wild pitches like left and right. Like, you can tell he was super nervous, if not for some good saves the previous night, by the way. And if say the ball hits Luis Campusano, they would have fallen apart. The Rockies have been begging, the same way the Padres are begging the team to perform when they have a sold out crowd and not fall completely apart and look like the Bad News Bears. The same way the Rockies are like, here, we literally are going to give you 9 walks. Like, go ahead. So you basically only need 1 hit in 3 innings, and you guys can't do that. So whatever, I guess we'll take the win, I guess. How does he follow up the previous night's disaster? Swings on the first pitch in the first inning, grinds into a double play. Oh, but by the way, that's not the only time. Yes, he does get a single in this game, but he grinds into another double play on the first pitch later on in the game. I got some numbers for you guys. Manny Machado's career with the Padres before he was extended, which granted, I understand that came with a contract, right? He signed the big contract to be there, but cumulatively, so from 2019 to 2022, Manny Machado was slashing 280, 352, 504 with a 131 WRC plus cumulatively. All those seasons. So that includes, by the way, though his first underperformed bad season with the Padres that we all forgave because the entire team was that first year in 2019, and the fact that he still hit 30 home runs was still nice. He was randomly not great defensively, which I still to this day haven't figured out, but whatever. It was the first year. And they had to get rid of those blue uniforms, you know what I mean? Now, ever since that extension, so the start of 2023 onwards, 251, 311, 438 slash line with a 108 WRC plus. 131 to 108 ever since he signed that extension. It's amazing to me that this keeps happening. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not me advocating for not paying players. I think that a big part of the component of this, of why, well, they always fall apart after they get paid. Yeah, because MLB arbitration is very predatory, and the fact that you only get to enter free agency after serving like an eon of service time, it's like, well, yeah, they've had the wear and tear, so they're probably not going to be great, but you still got to spend because you got to win, because you want to win the World Series. So there's more to it than that. But that being said, not to get on my soapbox, Machado's been awful. And I think that's been, along with Bogarts, has been the story of the team this year. The fact that they've been getting Juan Soto-like production, and I mean that's literally Juan Soto-like production in terms of on-base percentage. Jurickson Profar is currently ahead of Juan Soto in on-base percentage. He's 4th in Major League Baseball right now in on-base percentage. They've literally got a replacement for him. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not as good as those guys. I think WAR shows that, especially because of the defense, right? Profar's got a 1.7 F4. Everyone else above him in the on-base percentage has like 2.3, 2.8. A 3 from Mookie Betts was obscene so far, by the way. I just like, it's amazing that they've gotten this from Jurickson Profar. That Dylan Cease has completely filled in for the loss of Blake Snell. They've got Yu Darvish looking really good, who I told you his whole thing is just health, right? That's his entire story. Otherwise, hey, that guy was throwing 93 miles per hour on his fastball at one point in like 2014. Now he's throwing 94. Yu Darvish has the chance to age very gracefully. You've got that. You've got a bullpen that has been okay, at the very minimum, not worse than last year. And what we know for sure is Robert Suarez has easily replaced Josh Hader. Jake Cronenworth has bounced back to having numbers literally better than like Freddie Freeman practically. Or at least really close to it. I don't know if they're quite the same. Because I think Freddie doesn't get the tax as much with the defense. But I'm trying to see if I see him in WAR right now, if I could find that. Let me see. Where you at? Where you at, Jake Cronenworth? You on there? I don't see him. But whatever. You guys get my point. You've had Jake Cronenworth bounce back. You've had Tatis, who has been a little bit inconsistent. I think he's been streaky, and I think he's been swinging at pitches that he regrets in certain counts and at bats, right? So while cumulatively average-wise, Tatis has been good this year, he has had a lot of weird moments where you're like, well, why are you swinging at that? Like, what's going on here? Like, what are we doing here? He's had that, but you still can't win consistently. All of this stuff that's going well, and it's the bottom tier players, the supporting cast that is carrying this thing right now. It's like, imagine if Avengers Endgame came out and Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson and what's his name, Mark Ruffalo, like all just phoned it in completely and had horrible performances, and then it was like Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon that you made that was memorable. That's what this Padres team feels like right now. That is a horrible analogy, but you guys get my point. I don't know how they're going to fix it, but it's stuff like this, which is why people are so negative about the Padres, why I can be negative about the Padres, which is that they're not showing up against a team. They have no discipline. Machado turns into a pumpkin. He's been terrible ever since the extension. And the only thing I could say for him is the following, which is that it is elbow surgery. He talked about this before the game, that like it's probably going to take some time. It was surgery, basically, is what he said. And that's true. I imagine that's having a little bit of an impact on him. And frankly, I hope that's what it is. Because at least it would give us an explanation for why ever since you signed that extension, you've completely fallen into the mud, right? Like at least it would give us a reason and be like, okay, he's still recovering from that. That explains it. The same way we talked about how Xander Bogaerts last year gets hit by Spencer Strider on his wrist and then really suffers for a lot of the season. But then he at least showed that he made a little bit of a comeback. End of the season, he was hitting above 300. Like he was showing that the old Xander Bogaerts was there, and he was even slugging. Like 490 slugging percentage from Xander Bogaerts at the end of last year. But it's him and Machado consistently. Why am I watching a Padres team where Jurickson Profar I have more faith in than Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts, and frankly even Tatis combined? Why is that the case? Why do I trust Jackson Merill, a rookie, to get the Lightning started rather than Xander Bogaerts to get it started? Guys, I'm running out of things to say. I'm running out of things to say. I can't really explain this team. They are an enigma. They are a paradox hiding within the enigma of a shadow of a doubt of ridiculousness. I'm just saying words now, but I don't know. If you guys have any thoughts, of course, on this Padres team, feel free to let me know. Leave your YouTube comments. DM me on Twitter with any thoughts you might have, because as of right now, this team is just really horribly, annoyingly underperforming in certain areas, right when you're excited that they're going to start lifting off. It's amazing that we're hoping that they win 83 games. That's crazy to me. You should not. This roster has depth. This roster has superstars. Why is it that they can't just fire on all cylinders? Because here's my other thing. It was actually someone else who brought up this point. They're like, when Machado and Bogaerts finally figured out, then Jurickson Profar and Jake Cronenworth will go down. You know what I mean? Like all the guys who have been good now, they will hit their cold stretch by the time these people, these fellows, decide to pick it up and play to their contract for once. That's what's so frustrating about this team, and you know that's going to happen. That Robert Suarez, as soon as Santos and all those guys do it, that Suarez will fall off. As soon as Joe Musgrove comes back and he's good, Cease and Michael King will fall off, right? That's what it seems to be with this team. They're never firing on all cylinders, ever. And that's even been the case for when they've been good. Like in 2022, where it was like, yeah, they won 89 games. Juan Soto, Brandon Drury, Josh Bell, and Josh Hader were all bad immediately after they acquired them. Like even with those guys, they still managed to be underperforming. So I don't know, guys. I think it's the GM. I don't think you're this bad this many years. And if there's one common denominator, I don't think that means that it's just, wow, he's been unlucky for 10 years. That's what I think it is. But again, We'll have to see because, again, I must emphasize they have a wild card spot, 2 games better than the next best team, and record this early on isn't what I'm focusing on. It's that you beat the Dodgers, you win all these series in a row, and you make the Rockies look like a playoff team. You make them look like the Monstars for Space Jam. You make them look like the X-Men as opposed to Ed, Ed, and Eddie. It's insane. It's insane. But folks, that's enough ranting for today. Hopefully they win this last game of this series and send them on a little bit of a good track heading into this Braves series. And it's hilarious that, yeah, if they win today, they'll be back to 500. And then what'll happen? They'll win 2 games against the Braves and then get swept by whatever underperforming team they play after that, right? Let's see. They play the Reds. They have a 4-game series against the Braves. So we'll see how that pans out. But that's the other problem is that they play the Braves this weekend. You know? And I will say, by the way, someone asked me a question for Monday's show about the strength of schedule thing. Them playing this way against the Rockies is literally exhibit number 1 of why strength of schedule in baseball is not very conducive to. It's just not a real thing, in my opinion, because you could lose to anyone. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't matter. And the Rockies have been showing that clearly the past few years. So I'm done. I'm going to take a nap and hopefully pretend that the Padres don't exist until this next game, guys. But until that next time, stay safe. And, of course, stay faithful. My 5 faithful hobies. Take care. And this is a safe space. Let it out. Be frustrated. I get it. Take care.